Good evening. You're very welcome to our CAO Information Evening and our Business Law and Criminology webinar. My name is Judith Caffrey. I work in the Admissions Office, and I'm joined here this evening by Professor Joseph Coughlin, who is the head of the School of Business, and Professor Fergus Ryan, who's the head of the School of Law and Criminology. Please ask us your questions in the Q&A, and we'll address them as we go along. And if you have any questions at the end of the webinar that you'd like further information about, email us at admissions@mu.ie. We'd be happy to answer your questions there as well. I'll hand you over now to Professor Coughlin, who will start us off for the evening. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks very much, Judith, and welcome everybody. As Judith said, my name is Joe Coughlin. I'm the head of School of Business here at Maynooth University, and I'm going to share a presentation with you, and that's going to be about the business school and how it works and so on. So, just as Judith mentioned, as you're coming in there, please feel free to ask questions through the chat function. You can make that anonymous, or your name, it doesn't make an awful lot of difference. And obviously, any questions at the end to either business@mu.ie and the business school, or me specifically, because you have my email address there on screen. Very much open to any questions you might have, and we'll try and help you, whether it's business or law or something else. We'll try and help you as much as we possibly can. So what I'm going to do for the next couple of minutes is talk to you a little bit about options and a career in business with Maynooth University School of Business. So Maynooth Business School is one of the largest departments in the university, with over 3,000 students in the university studying some business modules as part of their degree. So what we're looking at here is a kind of a potential for how you might build a career in business. So first of all, just to explain a little bit about what business is about and why study it. So any organization that you're part of or that you know about, maybe you work part-time, or maybe you're a parent and you're working, or you're are working in a different industry, or someone in your family works in a different industry, you're going to find that all organizations, no matter who they are, have to raise finance in order to function. So in the phase of maybe government as a business, they do that through a budget process and through national loans and so on. But for your ordinary everyday business, they might take out a bank loan for a startup, for example, or they might have income from different sources. And then you have to account for that income and expenditure every year. You have to be able to tell the people who've invested in the business, often called shareholders, or even if you're a sole trader and your own small business, how you're doing at the end. For those of you who are on social media, you'll see people on Instagram and TikTok, and particularly YouTube, usually around now, you're doing the kind of how much I made from my videos and all that kind of stuff. So really interesting to watch. If you haven't watched any of those in the past, they're really illuminating about how much work it takes to actually make money as an influencer, and how much hard work it is. So that's definitely something that would give you an idea that business, whoever influencers you follow on whatever platform, really would be looking at kind of, at the moment, particularly January, they tend to do it around January, how much they've made out of endorsements and various things like that. So that's an organization. It's a self-employed person as an influencer, but it's often an organization. If you think about the products that you use and value in day-to-day life, so for example, you could be watching this on a computer at home, you could be watching this on a phone, you could be watching it on an iPad or a different device, whatever that might be. That's a product that you have purchased or maybe been gifted. As we've just come out of the Christmas season, gifts are probably something that was foremost in our minds. We also think about, for example, how we buy things. We might buy things from organizations online or in person. You could go into a shop and buy a bottle of water, a soft drink, or whatever it is, or you could be buying health food at the moment, given that it's January and maybe you're thinking about resolutions for the year. But any one of these products are delivered through a business process. So they're promoted through some form of marketing. So traditionally, marketing was things like advertising on television and radio, newspapers, magazines, and so on. And over the years, we've moved to putting billboards up on buildings, and we've also moved to doing wraparound things on buses and public transport and trains. However, more recently, we've moved to social media. So the idea that getting something for nothing, that we spend our time watching social media, and then we have to watch the ads. Or we might decide to pay for a service, such as Netflix, where there aren't ads. So therefore, as a result, we're paying for something to avoid these type of ads. But marketing definitely sells us product, helps us to understand and be aware of products and services that we wish to purchase and we find useful in our lives. And this is organized through some sort of management process. A good example of this would be you want to go to your local shop, which might close in the next hour, and you want to buy some bread or milk for the morning or cereal for breakfast. You want to make sure that it's there. If it's not there all the time, you won't go anymore. So therefore, this idea that the manager of that store needs to have a stock of what people are going to buy at certain times and needs to be in date and for foodstuffs in particular and safe and so on. So that's all really important. If you are a business graduate, you are very employable. The Higher Education Authority does an annual survey of graduates a couple of months out, usually 6 to 9 months out, and they publish that every year. Not surprisingly, the highest levels of employability are in medicine-related, medical health-related, and in education, so teacher training, for example. But very quickly after that is business. So it's a really good degree if you want to work in many, many different industries. You don't have to work in one industry. In fact, many options within Maynooth are not tying you to a particular industry. Some are, but generally we're not. And Ireland itself is very open, an open economy. It's very entrepreneurial. So we've lots of small businesses and large businesses that are startups and have made money as we go along. And we're very internationally focused in two ways. We have a lot of international companies working in Ireland. Some of them you'll be familiar with, people like Meta who run Instagram and Facebook, but also TikTok, for example, Shein, and most recently in today's news about them being headquartered in Ireland as well for Europe. So there's a lot of opportunities here to work in Ireland. But secondly, there's an awful lot of opportunities to help Irish companies to sell abroad. We're a small market. We have, nearly 6 million people. And we've the whole European Union open to us under trade deals, and we've good relationships with other countries. And we sell quite a lot of products abroad, and be those foodstuffs or other kind of products as well. So therefore, it's a very internationally focused economy. So there's lots of opportunities to work in that type of area. Just in terms of then the degrees that we want to look at, we would say at the top of the screen there, have unrivaled choice compared to most of our competitors. We offer a lot of different choices. Starting on the right-hand side, we have our pure degrees in business. We have 4 of those. We have a marketing degree, a business and management degree, which is our most general one and one of our longest ones. International business, which can be taken without a language, or you can pick up a language during it, or you can do a languages degree, which is a separate degree again. So lots of choice there. We have an entrepreneurship degree, which is actually the first degree that we launched over 14 years ago. Down on the bottom, then we have our finance-related degrees. We have a very quantitative finance degree. So this is for someone who's interested in mathematics, computer science, and in finance and how these fit together. So you'll do basically a third of a degree in each, and they will merge together and we look at things like financial analysis. Maybe you want to work in stockbroking or want to work in more kind of high levels of finance, this is something you would do. If you are more interested in working in finance in maybe other markets or working for a company, you might do a finance degree. Also, we offer accounting degrees. So we offer 3 of those here named accounting and finance, which is accounting with a small amount of finance within it. But the main thing about the accounting degrees, and we actually have another one hidden in business and languages, we have 4 of them. All those offer full Chartered Accountants Ireland CAP 1 exemptions, which is the first stage of your professional education as a qualified accountant. And then we also offer a master's separately for the second stage. But in general, you're offered the first stage as part of your degree. This would be common to any degree in accounting in Ireland. So they all should offer that. We also offer ACCA exemptions from another body and CIMA and other exemptions as well. So accounting and finance, business and accounting. So in that one, instead of finance, you study some business. And then law and accounting is a 50% degree, 50-50 in law and accounting. Again, in that one, you might decide to pursue a law career, be a barrister or solicitor, or you might decide to pursue an accounting career and become a chartered accountant or something like that. We also have law and business, a double degree, half and half, a 3-year program with BCL and law and business. BCL indicates that it's a law degree with business, so therefore you can qualify as a barrister or solicitor and keep business open. Students go either way on this particular one. We most recently have launched a business with sports science, so this is in our 2nd year. This is a degree where it's 2/3 business and 1/3 sports science. So this is taken with our sports science degree, our pure sports science degree. You take 1/3 of that, focus on performance and nutrition and those kind of areas. So we look at those, and then we also tie that together with business. So it's primarily a business degree with a small amount of sports science. If you're really interested in the science of sport, we have a full sports science degree as part of our science and engineering faculty. So you can definitely have a look at that. That launched last year, and it is on the CAO. We also have a business and languages degree. So this one is a very small box, but it's got 14 distinct degree options within it. So you can study accounting and become a qualified accountant with either German or Spanish. You can then also study any one of the first three of our pure business degrees. So that's marketing, management, or international business, with any one of 4 languages. And those 4 languages are in Maynooth are French, German, Spanish, and Chinese. All of those are available at beginner's level. So if you haven't studied them before, you can pick them up. And French, German, and Spanish are also available at post-leaving cert level. That's something, if you're interested in those, that's another mix to go along with. And finally, there we have a business and global cultures. It's another half degree in business. We offer that with management, with marketing, and with international business as well. And we offer it with the Department of Anthropology, and you study how business works in a global environment. Slightly different from international business, which is more focused on pure business with an international flavor. This one is more cultural, more about cultures and so on. So I said at the start that you can work in any industry. That's a really big part. So if you have a passion for a particular industry or an area that you'd like to work in, or maybe you're science oriented and you'd like to work in a chemical type company, or you're interested in chemistry, or you're interested in biology, you're interested in different industries, sport maybe. So this is just some pictures of industry. So a pure manufacturing company also needs people. We particularly focusing here on supply chain, on how products and services get to our customers. Health and health related is a very big career at the moment for many of our graduates in terms of understanding healthcare management. I think the HSE might need a few more of those kind of people, given current debacles in that particular funding of that. The airplane cockpit we don't train you to be pilots, unfortunately, but we do kind of show you how to manage kind of leisure services and manage those kind of areas as well. The guards are there to show you a little bit about the fact that we do work in the public sector as well. And our graduates have found employment in the public sector in all sorts of roles. And then finally, sport or leisure activities is also a general society. People have opportunities and found opportunities working on those as well. That includes roles in any sort of business career within those particular industries. Again, your passion, you choose. So what I want to do now is take a couple of minutes just to run through some of the areas in more general, so you have a little bit idea of what they mean. So what do we mean by management? We mean that it's organization, that people are in the right, that everything's in the right pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, are in the right places at the right time. What does that mean? It means that if I order something from Amazon, or any other online company, that when I look at their stock, that they tell me it's there, that it actually is there. When they tell me that it'll take 2 days to come, then it'll take 2 days to come. When they tell me it'll come between 2 and 3, it comes between 2 and 3, and it comes in the condition that I expect it to be in, and that it comes with a return label if I don't like it, or it's very clear how I would return it if I don't want it anymore. And what are the policies on that? So that's a tricky enough prospect, but a really interesting one to think about. And many of our students work in these kind of areas. So if you can think about how to manage this process, you need good, clear communication skills. You need to be able to lead teams and work in teams. You need to be able to get things through and with other people. So by managing processes and building relationships. So you need soft skills and people skills, but you also need to understand processes and technologies and how they work. And that's what a business degree in management should do for you. Secondly, we talk about marketing. So marketing is about a process of exchange, giving up something you have for something you want to have. So many of us, over Christmas, we've given gifts to loved ones. So why do we do that? And studies show that we give gifts because some people give gifts because they really want other people to be happy. So they get enjoyment, they get something they want from other people enjoying their gifts. And then secondly, some of us give gifts over obligation because we kind of feel we have to, but that makes us feel good as well. So there's a benefit to that along the way. Some examples over the last couple of years: Meteor rebranded to Air, so changing the brand name completely. But also many brands and many companies link themselves to different conversations in society through a sponsorship process. So the GAA, for example, would be linked to Centra and SuperValue. those brands which are part of the Musgraves Group. And then secondly, Lidl, for example, Ireland would be very much linked into ladies football. So that would be something that they've worked with. If you've seen any of the ads, this uphill struggle idea they have is quite an interesting one, given that they're relatively new to the Irish market. Not anymore, but they're newer than some of the other ones. International business then is business involving 2 or more countries, or business involving people or groups from different countries. Many companies in Ireland you will work for, if you decide to continue your career in Ireland, are multinational companies. So they're large companies with operations all over the world. So you could get up in the morning and go to work, and you could be dealing with Japan and China, and then India, dealing with Europeans. And in the evening, before you go home, you have your conference call with New York. Ireland is international for many reasons, one of which is geography. But also in Ireland, you have lots of different groups of people working in this country in different countries. So being able to cope with those different cultures, to manage people, to manage processes across this kind of idea of cross-cultural multinational management are really important things to be aware of in an Irish context, and even if you want to move your career outside of Ireland. Entrepreneurship then is the idea of setting up a business in its most general form. I put a picture there, some of you might recognize, kind of small on screen, but Kylie Jenner is there, one of America's youngest female billionaires. If you want to look into that, the Forbes magazine was published a couple of years ago now, but the questions as to whether she was a billionaire at the time, it's all kind of doesn't matter now, because she probably is. But this idea that, she's built up her business mainly through her background, that she had a good social media presence. We're not all gifted with a TV show that follows us and gives us millions of followers. And she was, but she'd made the most of it. So that's still an entrepreneurial process. It also, though, looks at how not everyone works in a startup or wants to work in a startup, but many people want to come up with new ideas within a defined area. So if you think of any company, large company, there's always new ideas, new ways of doing things, small improvements, and so on, that you can bring into a product to make it better and make customers happier and more satisfied. These are larger organizations, and they need people entrepreneurial as well. Within Minute, we have social entrepreneurship, which is changing society through innovative solutions, very much something that we do. Finance then is more technical. So it's looking at how we manage money and banking, credit and liabilities and assets and investments and so on. So it's kind of looking at how we think about how different events affect financial aspects of society. So a good example would be how does the quality of a harvest of coffee in South America affect coffee prices? How does the fact that maybe there was a storm in the Caribbean, how does that affect banana production? How does all these sort of things that maybe we don't think about too often, but that's what finance thinks about, looking at how markets interact and work together. Quite technical, quite mathematical at a particular level, but more understanding how global markets work together. Accounting, a lot of people think it's about, just debits and credits. And if you've done accounting for Leaving Cert, you know it's debits and credits. And maybe even for Junior Cert, you saw a little bit of that kind of stuff. But mostly, as a professional accountant, you're a business developer. You're looking at helping companies make investment decisions. You're looking at sourcing finance for small businesses and big businesses to help them expand and grow and maybe internationalize. You maybe manage a business. Accountants are often the leaders in many firms. You might help people understand financial products like pensions or investments, and then understanding how the economy is working in terms of economic development. With those finance and accounting, we have a lot of professional links, including all the major accounting bodies. CPA was there in the middle. They've recently merged with Chartered Accountants Ireland, so we'll be merging those together in a short period. And in the last year, the School of Business won the Education Award from the Irish Accountancy Awards. We were kind of, by our peers, given the highest level of award there, so we're very proud of our performance there. We do placement within the business school. So we find that a lot of graduates can find it difficult to get a job. Not so much, but some can. But having a year's placement behind them makes life an awful lot easier. And you can often get a job directly with your placement company at the end of your placement, where they say to you, well, when you're finished final year, just come back to us. That's a really good thing to have at the end of your degree. It's generally a year, 10 months minimum, but generally a year. Generally paid employment. Some people decide not to be paid. They might want to work for a startup or something like that. But in general, most people are paid, probably over 99% in reality. If you're on the quantitative finance degree, it's 12 weeks, it's a half year, but other than that, it's a full year on most of on nearly all our programs. We make the choice during second year, except for in business and languages where it's mandatory to go on placement or to go abroad. Some example companies there, some ones you recognize, some you may not, some larger, some smaller ones across different industries, and so on. You can also study abroad for a year, for one academic year, or with the quantitative finance for one semester. This is really interesting. You build a network online, you build your social network, you improve employability. Generally, most programs in Maynooth, including arts, etc., offer a year abroad. Again, choice made during second year, required for our languages degree. Here's a list of all our programs, again, just in a very straightforward line. So you can see with the codes there. Happy to answer any questions on them that you might have, and how they interact, hours, all that kind of stuff, or how you transfer from arts to those if you're interested in any of that. Just very quickly to say that in first year on a business degree, you'll typically study something around people, organization, a little bit of accounting and economics, but we assume you haven't studied them before. The role of business and society and so on, a little bit of marketing. Second year, then you go into a little bit more, you start to learn more about the core functions of a business and how it operates. Third year, you traditionally go abroad or you go on placement, and then you come back into final year, and you kind of pull together your learning from those prior years. Do you need to study economics or accounting or business? No, you don't. It's not required. If you have, great, but we don't require it in the slightest. If you're good at maths, well, we need H704 for most of our degrees, a little bit higher for our quantitative finance, but generally H501 will be the norm that people we get. And then we recommend it for the arts degree. Would be a good idea if you had it, but that's fine. We have a placement office that helps you with placements. We have a long list of placement companies. You apply for jobs, we help you get them in terms of that placement year. For more information, you can look at our school website, School of Business Maynooth. Email us on business@mu.ie or admissions@mu.ie, which is a more general admissions address. And we also have an app called Course Finder, which this is the link to below, which is really useful because it will show you exactly in terms of transparency what us or any other degree in Maynooth gives you in terms of content and topics. So thank you very much for your attention, and pass you back to Judith.
You, Professor Coughlin. Yeah, I just wonder, some of the queries that we get in typically around the business degrees are many, but in terms of the BBS versus BBA, if you can just outline, I know it was on your slide there with all the various degrees, so if you could just outline what that means.
Sure. So everybody starts together in first year and they do the same second year. At the middle of second year, they make a choice to either study abroad or to continue into final year or to go on placement. So if you study abroad, you get a BBA International. So you get a different degree from someone who does the 3-year degree, or then you get a BBA replacement, or you get a BBS, a Bachelor of Business Studies. The BBA stands for Bachelor of Business Administration. So that BBA distinguishes that you did a 4th year, so to speak. So for an employer, they're aware that you had another experience, be that a year abroad or a placement.
And in terms of careers with the business and sports science degree, do you have anything particularly that you think about that in terms of?
Yeah, sure. So business and sports is a relatively new degree. We created it because there's a increasing trend in big companies and in small companies for wellness, for people to be, looking after themselves, employers having obligations to ensure that people have healthy lives. And many of us are, this time of year in particular, looking at New Year resolutions and thinking about being more healthy. And many companies are employing people specifically to do that. So to do that properly, you're going to need to understand health, nutrition, bit on how people move. I mean, most offices, and as people go back to offices full time, they're sitting in a chair all day. They need to think about how many companies feel an obligation to help those employees be more healthy employees, make better food choices, and so on. Business and sports science will help you do that. But it gives you that business career, but also a little piece of that understanding about how the body works, how people move, so you can advise from a good place with knowledge other employees in your organization.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
I'll hand this over now to Professor Ryan.
Thanks so much, Judith and Joe. And hello to everybody. My name is Fergus Ryan. I'm the head of the School of Law and Criminology at Maynooth University, and I'm going to share my slides now, and in particular in these slides, I'm going to focus, I suppose, on the programs that we offer, but also talk a little bit about what is law, what is criminology, and what's involved in these subjects. A little bit about Maynooth first, because I'm conscious that people are not on campus. We do have open days on campus, but it's great to have the opportunity to attend an open day remotely. But just to tell you a little bit about Maynooth, I've been at Maynooth now for 11 years, and I certainly like it as a university. It's a very vibrant and diverse campus. It's a pleasant, convivial location. You're close enough to Dublin. It's only about 50 minutes on the train into Dublin, or thereabouts on the bus. But it's also not smack bang in the middle of the city centre either. And there are certainly advantages to our location in that regard. We're also relatively well connected to lots of places. In particular, there are a lot of bus routes. The train runs from Dublin to Maynooth and all the way to Sligo. There are lots of private bus companies as well that transport you to Maynooth. So it is a very nice location. I think certainly the South Campus in particular is very historic, but the North Campus as well is also very pleasant and green and low rise and so on. One of the major advantages, though, I think, of studying in Maynooth is the flexibility, is that you're able to study, let's say, law or business in combination with lots of other options. I think for law, for instance, there are 27 or 28 different subjects that you can study alongside law, and there are also very flexible entry and exit routes. So you can start off in an arts degree and finish with a law degree, for instance, or you could start off studying law as part of year one arts and then decide, in fact, that you want to focus on business, let's say, or on criminology and sociology. So there's a lot of flexibility there, allowing students to combine the study of law with other disciplines, and also to sample law and criminology in first year and then decide if they want to stick with it. We have really great staff, top class academics, but also I think it's important to mention really dedicated and friendly support staff as well, particularly in things like careers. I should mention admissions, the counselling office, access, registrations, and academic and programme advisory. So there's a lot of support there for students, particularly students coming into the access route. And we have lots of active sports clubs and societies as well. I think around 90 of those. In terms of why would you study law, there's lots of different things you could study. And the study of law, sometimes people imagine it's just about we learn all of the rules. And even now, actually, I think I'm nearly 35 years studying and researching law. I still don't know all the rules. It's not possible to know all the rules. But what we do study, particularly in law, is legal systems and how those systems lead to the making of laws, how laws are interpreted. In other words, how do judges determine the meaning of a law where there's dispute over that meaning, how laws are applied, and how they're enforced or implemented, or indeed, in what circumstances might a law not be enforced or implemented. Certainly there's a certain amount of learning of rules, of binding rules that are recognized as obligatory within a particular community or state that are imposed upon us. But it's more than just learning the rules. It's about learning about the systems and indeed the culture of law. Law is something that is useful in every walk of life. There are very, very few areas of life where law doesn't in some way affect it. So if you're a supermarket manager or you're a farmer, you need to know a little bit about the law. And indeed, in our day-to-day traveling, for instance, if you're driving a car, you need to understand what are the rules of the road, what are the laws that apply there. If you don't wear your seatbelt, what will happen potentially? If you go over the speed limit, what will happen? So law impinges on every aspect of our lives, and it's important to understand the rules, broadly speaking, that apply within our field, but all the more so it's very useful to know the system under which such rules are made, interpreted and applied. Why study law? Well, my sense, certainly having studied law, the one thing that I found useful is it kind of opens up the world to you. You get a sense of how the world, how society operates. It offers you a keen insight into how societies are regulated and how the legal system operates. And that can be very useful, even if you don't decide that you're not going to become a practicing lawyer. It's very useful to have a sense of the legal system and the political system that operates and that governs our lives and increasingly regulates our activities. But law also helps you to develop your ability to argue, to reason, to persuade. And I think very particularly law is about problem solving. And I suppose we're not unique in that respect. There's an argument certainly that other disciplines help you solve and avoid problems, but very particularly in the context of law. And sorry, we've just gone back a bit there, gone forward rather. Law, a good lawyer is somebody who will help you solve a legal problem. A really great lawyer is somebody who will help you avoid that problem in the beginning, for instance, by good drafting of contracts, by warning you not to do X or Y, or that you need to do this or that. So the solving and avoidance of problems, the problem solving is an important skill, I think, that we develop on a law degree. Other skills are the skill of advocacy and persuasion. We have a focus on negotiation in some of our modules, for instance. So being able to advocate, to argue on somebody's behalf or on your own behalf, to persuade others, that's a key legal skill. The ability to engage in reasoned argument, particularly when your case is not particularly strong. It's about being able to persuade a judge or an administrator to lean towards your client in some way, or to for instance, to not impose as strict a sentence that might otherwise apply. So the ability to engage in reasoned argument, to persuade, is an important skill, I think, that people pick up when studying law. And I want to emphasize that these are skills that certainly are developed in other fields as well. But we think that we have a particular keen focus on these skills in law. You might wonder what criminology is. Criminology is actually a very popular subject in Maynooth, but a lot of people ask us, and the first question we're asked is about criminology is, what is criminology? And a lot of people imagine that criminology is kind of CSI, that it's forensic science, it's studying, for instance, blood spatters and crime scenes and so on. And specifically, criminology is not that. Criminology is actually more sociological, to some extent psychological. It draws from disciplines like sociology, psychology, anthropology. Criminology is a scientific study of crime. And by scientific, I mean in the broader sense of the term, not, as I say, CSI. But we look at things like what is defined as a crime, and why are certain activities defined as crimes and others not. And so, for instance, some of the big questions that are asked in modules like social harm and semiology is the question of, why do certain things that are extremely harmful not result in criminal sanctions, and sometimes very low level behavior that doesn't cause huge amounts of harm results sometimes in sometimes very significant criminal penalties. So the question of what is defined, what society defines as criminal, and what society lets people away with, is one big question in criminology. Criminology is also the study of criminals and indeed non-criminals. A big part of criminology is looking at the risk factors that lead certain people into crime and that dissuade others, the vast majority perhaps, from engaging in criminal activity. And most typically, criminology looks at the causes and effects of crime and responses to crime. Again, what are the kind of things that propel some people into crime or a criminal career, and what might detract people from criminality. So in criminology, we ask a lot of questions. It's important in particular with criminology to ensure that there's an evidence base. One thing that distinguishes criminology from a criminologist from the general public is the ability to bring evidence to the discussion around crime, because very often we have knee-jerk reactions, we have certain impressions around criminality that may or may not be true. A good criminologist is somebody who brings a firm evidence base, who doesn't just respond in a knee-jerk way or based on populist ideas, but who can show, and discuss actual patterns in crime based on evidence. So there's a little bit on this slide actually about, what does law and criminology, what do these modules, what kind of person do these suit? There's lots of different things you can do with a law degree, and there are lots of different focuses in law. So some people study aspects of law that are very discursive and very general. There are other people who prefer the more technical side of law. So there is something for everybody in law, and indeed criminology. But I think a good lawyer is somebody who is interested in social justice, human rights, and fairness, somebody who may enjoy history, politics, languages, current affairs, but I think particularly somebody who enjoys nuances in language, who's interested in words and their impact and in the meaning of words, and who is careful particularly in framing a discussion, who will, think carefully about the words that are used. Attention to detail is important. I mean, I always say if you're somebody who really doesn't like filling out forms, law might not be the discipline for you. People have different skills, different interests. Somebody who is interested in law usually should have good attention to detail and be good at arguing and persuading. I've spoken a bit about, criminology and what a good criminologist is. Criminologists typically are people who are concerned with social structures, supports for the vulnerable, who are looking beyond the immediate causes of crime to trying to understand the underlying reasons for crime and the patterns of criminality. A good criminologist is someone who's interested in prisons and prisoners, who's interested in policing and the various approaches to policing. But critically, a good criminologist is somebody who is interested in researching and applying a strong evidence base for policy decisions, making decisions based on the evidence of what works and what doesn't work. And so, for instance, a lot of criminologists focus on the function and the effectiveness of prisons, and argue based on statistics that prisons are should really be the last resort, and that often are not an effective response to crime. There are lots of different routes into law and lots of different routes in law in Maynooth. And broadly speaking, there are three categories of law degree that we offer. You can do a lot of law, or a little bit of law, or indeed no law at all is also a choice. But you have lots of choice there across the program. Programs rather. So if you want to do just law, we have a 4-year LLB Bachelor of Laws, which is basically a single major in law. The advantage of that is you do a lot of law. There are lots of options, things like sports law, media law, banking and financial regulation, human rights, international law. So that's a 4-year law degree where you're mainly doing law as a single major, and particular there's a strong emphasis on skills, things like negotiation, dispute resolution, and mooting, which is effectively trial advocacy. If you want to keep your options open, however, the BCL may be a better bet. The BCL has a number of different iterations: law and business, law and accounting, law and criminology, which is the most popular of the BCLs, and law and arts. And just this year, we've introduced the BCL Law and Languages, which allows you to do law in conjunction with Irish, French, German, or Spanish. There are 4 language streams there. The advantage of the BCLs is that you get to do enough law, particularly enough law for the King's Inns and black hole place exams. But it allows you to keep your options open and to combine law with, for instance, business, with Irish, with sociology, for instance. You can also take law and the arts degree in the first year, and there's two advantages to doing that route. The first is that if you're not sure that you're going to get the points for the LLB or the BCL, the BA can be a good backup option. But the other advantage is if you're not sure you're going to like law, you may not want to commit to a full 4 years in law if you're not really sure about it. Taking law as part of the arts degree allows you to sample law in your first year along with other subjects if you decide you like it. There are various transfer routes. You can transfer into the BCL or the LLB in year 2 if you pass law and you pass year 1. Or you can drop it if you decide, you actually don't like it and you'd like to progress with other subjects. In criminology, we have 3 routes, and again, there's a similar structure. You can do criminology now from 2025 as a single major on its own, 3 years. Sorry, that should be 3 years rather than 4 years of just criminology. You do a little bit of you can pick other subjects in first year, but in second and third year, it's just criminology. So if you decide you really like criminology, you can transfer into that degree, indeed, from the arts degree or the BCL Law and Criminology. But you can also take it from the start. It's a new code, MH504. I mentioned Law and Criminology as well. The idea there is that you can do law and criminology in equal measure. And you can also take criminology as part of the arts degree, for instance, in combination with psychology or in combination with sociology. Those are 2 very popular routes. The advantage, I suppose, of doing law or criminology as part of the arts degree is you've got a lot of flexibility, and there are a lot of different options for combinations. You can do law or indeed criminology with sociology, English, Irish, politics, psychological studies, a range of world languages. You can study law in combination with business. Unfortunately, criminology cannot be combined with business, Greek, or history, and law cannot be combined with German or excuse me, with geography or philosophy. So that's just a timetabling matter, is that in order to make our timetable work, there are certain combinations that are grouped together. But broadly speaking, there's a lot of choice there, both on the BCL and on the BA in terms of combining law with other subjects. And as I say, they're also vitally, there are these transfer options in year 2, that if you take at least 15 credits of law in year 1 and you pass law and pass year 1, you may be able to transfer to year 2 of the LLB or the BCL. And broadly speaking, there is no cap on numbers. It's just a matter of passing year 1 and passing law in year 1. There are lots of different things you can do with a law degree. It's important to note you don't need a law degree in order to become a barrister or solicitor, although it does make it easier to do so. But law is a very useful discipline to take, even if you're not intending to become a legal practitioner. It's a very strong basis for a variety of careers in both the public and in the private sector. There are, as with business, there are Erasmus and study abroad options, and also placement options in effectively between years 2 and 3 of the BCL. So you can take an extra year and expand your BCL into 4 years, and in year 3 of the LLB. They are competitive entry. The placements are a bit more competitive than the Erasmus and study abroad options, but there are still a good number of options there, and that can be a great way of enhancing your degree by taking, as I say, international study or alternatively a placement. We're a big school. We have about 160 modules, 61 full-time staff. And what that means effectively is that we teach a very broad range of things. I mentioned before, sports law, media law, family law, introduction to Chinese law in 4th year. So we're able, because we have a large number of staff, to teach I think quite a broad variety of modules. And as I say, we also have a very extensive suite of postgraduate opportunities as well. It's not all work and no play. There are various kind of societies, a lot of extracurricular activities. We organise the National Moot Court competition each year, and our students organise an international negotiation competition. Mooting is where you pretend to be a barrister in front of a judge. It's a very, very useful, particularly if you're planning to become a solicitor or barrister. So I leave it at that. I think the key thing I wanted to mention is that there's lots of flexibility there. Firstly, lots of transfer options. You've got the opportunity to sample, add, or drop subjects, for instance, in the first 4 weeks of year one. And you have the flexibility to combine law or criminology, or indeed business, with the study of lots of other disciplines. So I think that's a key thing that I wanted to emphasize about our degrees. But if you have any questions, or if you want to research this further, our Maynooth University website's very useful, maynoothuniversity.ie/law. You can follow us on our socials, X or Twitter, and Instagram at Maynooth Law, or email us at law@mu.ie. So thanks so much for your attention.
Thanks very much, Professor Ryan. Really, really interesting as always. And just a couple of general questions to both of you, if that's okay, around assessment. It's kind of a query that we have a lot in terms of exams versus continuous assessment. Is there kind of a broad brush stroke that you could give in terms of how the degrees work in that regard?
I can start if you want. In terms of business, there's a mix. So some modules would be completely assessed through group work and individual work. For certain modules, then, because of professional requirements due to accounting, there would be a higher level of exam. So it would be a mix. It depends on the degree you're doing. But, some things are best learned through case studies with real companies and working with real data, and other things just have to be learned and have to be practiced in an exam setting, because that's the way that in a work situation, you have to know the knowledge to be an effective an accountant, for example, or finance person. Fergus, I don't know where you are.
It's very much the same for law and criminology. There is a mix there. There has been certainly for the last 10, 15 years, been a trend towards more continuous assessment and fewer exams, although that's reversed a little bit since in recent years. Certainly for law, there are certain modules that we have to examine because of professional body requirements, and that have to be examined on campus, closed book. What you tend to find is that as you go up, let's say the LLB degree, for instance, in year 4, there are comparatively few exams. Most things are assessed by continuous assessment. And on master's programs, in fact, there are comparatively few modules with exams. But for the core modules, you will be examined. In criminology, actually, there's a lot of innovative assessments. We also should say that there are in some modules, there's a group work, and that's important. Law firms in particular, and I'm sure it's the same for business firms, will tell us that they want students who are good at working in teams, who have that experience and who can show and demonstrate that they have group and teamwork experience. Students often don't like group work, but it's actually one of those things that is very good for you and good for your career and CV. So there's a variety of different types of assessment, and we try to mix it up so that in some cases, let's say you will have a module that's 100% examined by an end of semester exam, but we try to mix it up to make sure that we are testing various different abilities, oral advocacy, as well as written research work, as well as I suppose there are certain things you kind of do need to remember that are fundamental, like that we do examine, but it's very much a mix of assessment.
And what are class sizes like typically? And say in first year, if a student comes into law and business in maybe through the arts degree, what kind of size lectures, tutorials might they be looking at?
It depends. It can vary from we have classes, a small number of classes where there might be 5 or 6 students, but most of our classes in first and second year would have well, generally speaking, we would split up the groups basically. So it's roughly 200 to 300 in a class in first year for law or criminology, and they will be split up into sometimes into there will be groups of 300, let's say 2 groups of 300 each. When you get to second and third year, the numbers begin, particularly on options, would begin to thin out. And in fourth year of the LLB, for instance, the classes can be quite small and they're more like master's classes. But the average class sizes would be fairly large. I should add, however, that in all of our core modules, and particularly those that are required for King's Inns and Blackhole Place, we also have small group tutorials. That's groups of about 25. So there is the opportunity for those smaller group experiences with more interaction, and that sort of offsets the effect perhaps of being in a large class.
Mm.
And we would be very similar. So it would be large, between 250 to 300 for the classes, and then there will be tutorials, not every week, but some weeks in smaller groups where it's more experiential and more discussion based, and you get to talk and work in groups, so on. So and as the years go on in more specialist modules, the numbers do get smaller.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think we're all done at this stage. I don't see any questions coming in from our visitors, but thank you all very much for taking the time to join us this evening. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Professor Coughlin and to Professor Ryan for your time. If there are any further questions, please do contact us through admissions@mu.ie or through web chat or whatever way you like on social media. But for the time being, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Judith.
Okay. Thanks, Judith.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.